Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next edition of Tiger Eye Talk. I'm Lisa DeToffel, your host, and today I have with me Joseph Wesley. He is the president of JNL Creative Solutions. Um, he started his current journey around the COVID era. He uses two acronyms: BC before COVID area and AC after COVID area.
Mhm.
Very creative, very creative. In the VC era, when physical networking was the norm, his associates would often complain that their prospects didn't seriously take their claim as being the best or what they do or provide as being the best. In an even more intimate dialogue, the same business owners would also complain that they are treated as commodites or negotiable at that. That's crazy, right? I've never met any business owner who proudly states that they are only second best and proud about it. To put it mildly, it's a challenge when potential prospects must wade through the loud chorus of "I'm the best" provider of said service or product, whatever it is they provide, right?
Mhm.
COVID dampened this mantra as most were currently focused on survival. However, the AC era finds business owners facing the same challenge of how to stand out from their competition. Your competitors can mimic or copy what you do, but they can't fake who you are. While market research and value propositions help us stay competitive, what truly sets you apart is the one thing no one can copy: your secret sauce. Only you walk your life's journey, experiences, and develop talents. So people can mimic what you do, but they can't fake who you are. Your secret sauce is what makes you irreplaceable and magnetic to your ideal market. Embrace it, refine it, in your path to success.
Mhm.
He demonstrates his mantra via his Hot Seat Challenge podcast. Thank you, Joe Wesley, for being here from JNL Creative Solutions.
Well, thank you for thank you for the invite to be part of your program. What I talk about is the concept of how do I stand out from the competition. And the only company I've ever met that proudly said we're second best and we're proud about it is Avis Car Rental. And bless them for getting away with it. However, secret sauce is not intuitive. When you talk about how you're the best, your competition can overtalk you. And if you ever had a business coach or read a business plan, one of the things they say is look at your competition. And if you're smart, cherry pick the best of what they have to offer for yourself. And if you're creative, embellish it. So it really is hard to talk about how you are better than anybody else and have it stand on its own 2 feet. So I coined the phrase, let me say this differently. My tagline is I don't claim that I see dead people, but I will help you discover a unique part about yourself that nobody else can lay claim to and gives you a distinct advantage over your competition. And I call that your secret sauce. Now, it's not intuitive. So I talk in stories, I use metaphors. And let's say peanut butter. Who doesn't like peanut butter, be it smooth or chunky? I can't stand this stuff. And my mother and I would talk about this when I was much younger because she was confused by it. And she would tell me I'm her firstborn, and to have the most healthiest vessel for her firstborn, she would eat Google drops of peanut butter out the Jiffy jar. And I'm convinced it mucked up my DNA sequence. There's some antigen antibody conflict going on here. And the moment that stuff touches the tip of my tongue, it gets stuck to the roof of my mouth for the foreseeable future. Now, you can put that peanut butter in some sculpted jar that wins some international award of beauty and design. You could put some medallion insert of titanium or platinum for organic purity and taste, and maybe even a cute ribbon around the neck. I don't care the color, it doesn't matter. I'm not buying this stuff, no matter how much you market it. However, having said that, I love orange marmalade. Bread, toasted, some butter, slap that stuff on, maybe over chocolate ice cream. And the concept is that I believe, everybody has a preference of sauce flavor, aroma, however you phrase it. And I think and every agent, we're all human beings here, but there's AI stuff moving in. Maybe I can't say that in 3 or 4 months, but for the moment, we're still all human beings here. And everybody has this sauce aura. And people will prefer what they respond to. And what's the mantra? People will do business with you because they know, like, and trust you. And they'll like you in part because, hey, he's a peanut butter person or she's an orange marmalade person. The reverse of that is if someone in peanut butter or flavor is trying to sell to me, it's not happening because there's competition out there that will offer pretty much the same thing. So how do I make my choice? They say in the market, people make choices on emotion, 75, 80% of the time. Yeah. And then they justify with their left brain after that. So if you discover your secret sauce, you have really a head start over your competition. And how that develops is you live a life, you have experiences, you respond to certain things because of your experience behind that, and you will respond to that. I give another example. My wife is a nurse, and we have friends of varying types, and some are physicians. And one of our friends, mutual, is a general practitioner. And she'll go to him and for diagnostic testing, for routine, she has a concern, whatever it may be. And he will sit with her kneecap to kneecap, will cup her small hand with his male hands underneath and on top, and he has a baritone voice, and will lean into her and say, Mrs. Wesley, respectfully, I know you have concern, that I want to assure you that we will do the best possible job we can to figure out if there's anything going on, what it might be, and then take care of it. And she loves that stuff. Me, no, don't touch me. Respect my personal space. Just tell me what I need to know and let me out of here. So the point is, he's not talking his bullet point format of criteria. He's not presenting you his value proposition that you have to listen to. He knows his secret sauce. And because of that, my wife will never go to another doctor as long as he's living because she responds to his style, his persona. And he's board certified, name brand hospitals. I could go on and on with this. It doesn't matter. But the point I'm making is everybody has a secret sauce. And I say secret because people don't know they have it, much less how to find it. So I help people discover their secret sauce. And that's my 30-second elevator pitch.
That's awesome. So awesome. Thank you for that, Joseph. What is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career as an entrepreneur?
Interesting. Well, I talk in stories again. The Wall Street Journal eons ago came out with an article, bullet point format, front page, on the 10 criteria of being an entrepreneur. And the New York Times, and there's a regional paper for New Yorkers called the Star Ledger, not to be outdone, came out within a week later, again, front page bullet point criteria of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And not to be accused of plagiarism, they had different criteria, but there were 3 common to each of the 3 news media. I don't remember one of the 3, but the second one, or the first primary one, was being able to consider worst case scenario. And any business coach will tell you, if you're not prepared to handle worst case scenario, usually it's economic, you run out of money before your business kicks off, you don't bother with it because likely it will hit you as a challenge. The second one that was common to all 3 articles was being visionary. And I'm convinced it's a euphemism for being psychotic. You have a sense of reality that nobody else perceives. The world is round, it's not flat, and I'm going to prove it. So if you meet those 2 criteria, then I think you can be defined, at least in part, as an entrepreneur, if I'm answering that question well. And if you're not prepared, rephrase that. You have to be the kind of, I don't say have to be, ought to be, you make your own choice. It's right. Helpful if you don't look for permission to speak. Is anybody else doing it already before me? If that's where your world is, I respect that. But it's not going to allow you to take that step in front of other people and commit yourself to a program that people will laughingly say, why would you bother doing that? That's silly. I hope that answers the question, but that's my
That's
concept of it.
awesome, awesome, awesome. What is the number one takeaway your clients experience when working with you?
Music to my ears. Let me phrase that. I ask good questions, I connect the dots well, and I see things. Music to my ears is when somebody who I've spoken with will raise an eyebrow of intrigue, appreciation, astonishment, and will say, "You're the first one to ever bring that up to me. I've never thought about that before." And I've even had, put it in perspective. I do what I call a podcast also. It's called, Are You Prepared to Take Your Hot Seat Challenge to discover an ingredient of your secret sauce? And what I do for that 30-minute session, I begin by asking, what's your favorite pastime? Because that goes to your passion. It's much different than, well, tell me about yourself. Well, geez, I'm in my third marriage. I bought and sold 5 businesses. I got 8 grandkids. Well, yeah, I hear that, but I have no interest in any of that. I want to know, what is it about who you are? So I can ask why questions. Why do you take that as your favorite pastime? Why do you like that as a hobby? Because it gives a core essence of who you are, that persona. And then at some point, I will give my impression to that particular person, like what makes me credible in this session. My observation, it's only a half an hour, but for that 20-minute session of the 30-minute time period, I'll give my viewpoints of who I think that person is. And now the music to my ears when people will say, I've never thought about that before. You're the first one to bring that to my attention. I like it because, one, it provides value of what I do, not only to them, but to our collective audience. It allows them some insight. It gives them credibility. Now, people will ask me, well, what's your fee for this one session? I say, an hour of your time. And it's not for everybody, I get that. But on the other hand, it allows me to share my experience in this hot seat challenge because, quite frankly, the challenge is to me, not to you, my guest. If I can't walk my talk, if I can't show value of my skill, then how can I possibly convince you for your money? I can do it for you and your company. So far I've been batting 1,000%, and that's really not the point here, but you ask me, what does it do I want someone to take away from it? I want them to realize that there is a part about them intrinsic they didn't know about, and 2, I can help them find it. And if I can do those 2 things, I've done well.
Nice, very nice. What's the best compliment you've ever gotten after working with someone?
Well, my pause is not that I haven't had one. I got to make up something. My pause is, you said best. And I think
you can choose which one's the best.
That's what's the best of the best. So that could be a marketing approach, folks. But again, it comes back to the concept of that raised eyebrow. And in a generic sense, you're the first one to ever bring that to my attention. And if I'm able to do that, and usually this, I'll say astonished appreciation. And some people even say on the program, Joe, you're good at this. And I'll tease them back, could you show a little bit less surprise about my skill factor? I enjoy the dialogue, the back and forth. And if I've been able to provide that person a valuable insight about who they are, then it's one lady said to me, Joe, you do good. You serve a good purpose. And I hadn't thought about this. My surprise, you let people know they have value that nobody else has. And that alone is an upside in terms of dialogue with people. And she's talking pure right brain. She was correct. I'm a left brain kind of guy. Never occurred to me. So I have to use her example as the best compliment ever.
Nice, very nice. What is something people seem to misunderstand about what you do?
Oh, well, are you a coach? Are you a PR person? Do you do websites? I'm not knocking the profession, but you're asking me the question, that's the response back. And they say in business, you should never say no to anything. I say, no. And when I first began this, and people said, well, dang, what do you do? Now angry at me because they can't figure out what I am. And people will catalog me with things they're already familiar with. And that's understandable. So that's why I tell stories, because people, it has a better connectivity. Each of us have a story, and I'm not talking about developing your story and knowing how to tell your story, but like the physician I gave as an example on my wife's behalf, that he knew who he was and he used his aura, his style to his advantage. He doesn't come out and say, well, I'm a nice kind of guy. I'm a people kind of doctor. I have concern for you. Who doesn't have concern about their clients, whether it's true or not? No one's ever going to admit to that.
Right.
But he walks his talk. And so people who are on a pragmatic basis, as one guy said, he was challenged by his web designer, I used that as an earlier statement, because they can't figure out what I'm trying to get across as a message. Well, in all fairness, web designers aren't architects, they're not engineers, they're not clothier experts. They create websites and they'll ask you, what is it you want to accomplish? And if you're not clear on that, then it's a struggle back and forth. So he asked me, Joe, could you interpret who I am with my web designer so they can figure out what's going on? So you'd ask me, what's my role? That once we help you discover your secret sauce, I will then refer you to a marketing expert. I'll refer you to a PR expert, to a web designer, to a business coach, whomever it may be. And I could be the ancillary, the go-between, the back and forth. But certainly when people talk about what's your value proposition, you'll have a much more deeper, sophisticated response, meaningful answer than you would have had otherwise, having that question asked of you. I hope that answers your question. I start rambling sometimes and I have to admit I lose track of myself.
Right. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. How would your family describe what you do?
Ooh. That's a big one. Excuse me. Let me say this differently. I've been married for 25 plus years. So I'm going to give an answer with a qualifier. And the one thing that she's ever done that's made sense to me is she married me. Other than that, her actions, her statements, her acts, whatever else, it makes no sense to me at all. So I can talk about what they say, what they do, but she still wants to hang with me. So there's clearly something about me she finds, despite who I am, because of who I am, how she wants to hang. She says to me, you're kind of high energy. She's trying to be polite about why some people, there are two types of people in my world: those who swear by me and those who swear at me. And quite frankly, in my opinion, those who swear at me carry so much baggage, they're not worth the aggravation. So those who swear by me, but again, it reflects my secret sauce, in all fairness. Okay. So I'm not meant to be all things for all people, but it allows me to be, it enables me, I'll say it like that. It allows me to be more of who I am. And my wife, for some reason, loves my sauce aura. And I've yet to understand. I keep saying, why do you stay with me? I do ask her that on a fairly regular basis. She never gives me an answer. But so you would have to ask her at a private moment or a separate program. But they've learned that I'm very intense in what I do. I'm decently good at what I do. And I try to be otherwise not oblivious to the world around me, to be considerate and responsive to her needs. When I say family, it's my wife and I. We had cats at some point, but as long as you feed them, they could care less one way or the other. But I have to say, or choose to say, that I think she sees value in me, that she seems to be okay with it still 25, 30 years later of dialogue.
That is awesome. Awesome. Who are the three most influential people in your life, and how do they impact you?
Okay. There's a lady who played Golden Girls. She was the feisty, shorter one. She just passed within the last year. Betty, I can't think of her name. White. Betty White. I love the lady. I still do. She speaks, if you've seen her commercials, it reflects who she is. She speaks her mind. She's very comfortable with herself. And I think that's part of my sauce response. I call it intellectual honesty. There are people I've met, I'm a little bit digressing, believe it or not, who can't ever admit that maybe they made a mistake. They won't acknowledge to that. In my world, these are people who are challenged of learning, because if you can't admit, hey, I made a mistake, I apologize for it, or Joe, maybe you made a point I haven't considered, I agree or disagree, that type of persona I have dialogue with, and I do that very well. And I think people who are drawn to me share that same philosophy. And again, it's back to the sauce aura. So I forgot your question already. What was
Who's the three most influential people in your life, and how do they impact you?
So I like Betty White because she speaks her mind, and I can understand why, despite or because of her age, was very well liked. For those who didn't like her, that's on them. I have to say I like my wife. She's a total empath. For those, people respond to her. Her EQ is much higher than my IQ, and I think I have a decently good IQ without bragging or boasting. She's an intuitive sense of people. They respond to her like magic, and I just sit and watch like, how does she do this? And I know my left brain is kicking in, but she's a right brain persona. So because she still wants to hang with me, of course she has value to me and somebody I appreciate and respect. And I have to say my mother, that I grew up in a single parent household. She had to work. I was the oldest of 3 kids. I went back to school, support us. She did a lot of juggling. And she may not have been, who's the best human being? I don't know. I'm not, my wife isn't. I get that factor of reality. But I think she's the best mother I could have had, and better than many I've heard of my peers, the parents they've had. So I would say those 3 people have been most influential in my life. And she emphasized education as a means of functioning, of independence, emphasizing self-thought, thinking for yourself with good reason. And those 3 people, Betty White, my wife, and my mother.
Awesome. Awesome. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, biggest pet peeve. My pause is, part of my struggle with that is that many people I meet are priced focused. Too much effort, too much aggravation. I can't be bothered. My focus is value. If the value, I've seen people spend $10,000 for a pair of shoes because someone takes a paintbrush and paint the bottom of the shoe red. I don't get it. That's not value to me. So being value focused is instrumental to where I am. So my pet peeve is the cost of doing business. If something you have to make effort for a relationship, for a business, call it what you want, for a vacation, making a decision, if the value is there, and I think that's intrinsic to the person making that decision, then the downside is minimal. Aging. There's got to be some value in that. I've yet to figure it out. I tell people about marriage as an example. When I first was married, before I was married, for those who knew me, I had a baritone voice. I had a full head of hair, and I was 10 feet tall. And I was saying, look at me now. So you talk about negative aspect, but here I am bragging about how great she is. So that's a hard question, because there's a lot of things I could poke at that annoy me. The people who turn me off, I can perhaps say that better, are those who aren't, again, intellectually honest. They can never, these types of people, in my experience, this dialogue, if you can call it that, back and forth, and they get in a position that there's nothing more they can say to lean on you, the phrase is, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I can understand that. Better to say that than start fisticuffs and cussing somebody out, I guess. Right. But these are people, in my opinion, my experience, will never, ever admit you have a point made for consideration, whether I agree or not. And so that type of person I tend to walk away from. And because there are not too many of them hanging around, they don't stay in my psyche or my world. That's the best I can answer that with.
Awesome. So share with us how our viewers can get in contact with you if they like.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is I did send a bio, and I believe when we had our dialogue, you do submit that as part of your presentation. I'd like to upgrade it, because if I spell, first if I start saying JNLCreativeTools.com, whoa, let me find the pen, the pencil, I don't have any paper, not going to work. And if I give so I'd rather put it in writing. So the name of the company is JNL Creative Solutions. It is on the website as such. I do belong to LinkedIn, to Facebook, and Alignable. So for those, and I'm on YouTube, I do a podcast, Your Hot Seat Challenge, for enhanced success. For those who love the thrill of the hunt and want to chase it down, go for it. For those that, I have a philosophy, one of several. A consumer should never have to work hard to spend their time, money, or resources for something that allegedly is for their best interests on behalf of the agent. So I don't want you to have to work hard to find me and discover me. So I will update my bio, and at that point, click the link of this podcast, review it, share it with your friends. I'm doing a little bit of marketing approach here now, but on the other hand, certainly reach out to myself and please to my host. She's phenomenal in what she does.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it's a privilege to be a part of this. And for those of you who want, I'll say free marketing, to be hedonistic about it, I can't think of any better way to do it. So you ask very good questions and you conduct a very good program.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you personally for being our guest on Tiger Eye Talk. We do Tiger Eye Talk once a month on the first Tuesday of every month. We are looking for guests for 2025. We only have a few months left and we are booked throughout the rest of this year, but we do have available spots for 2025. If anyone out there is interested in being a guest on Tiger Eye Talk, please reach out to me and let's get you on the schedule. Again, thank you so much, Joe, for being here with me today and sharing all your insight about your wonderful business and what you do for your clients.
A pleasure. Thank you also very much.
See you again next month, everyone.